This is Truth Frequency Radio.
The wicked ones obviously under heavy Masonic influence.
I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the crying in the street. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad. You've got to say, I'm a human being, God damn it! My life has value!
This is all I know.
I hereby declare this to be an unlawful assembly.
Oh, is that what it is? Well, I don't want you to violate the law. Get in your back number, he'll leave you alone. Yeah.
Good works are done in light, so what's done in darkness needs to be brought to light. And it's up to us, citizen media, to be out here and expose it.
We will stand and fight. Seeking answers to age-old questions. Deciphering the world painted around you by the mainstream media. This is the Kev Baker Show. And now, here is your host, Kev Baker.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Kev Baker. This is today's Kev Baker Show. A big warm welcome to everyone who's taken the time to tune in to the live broadcast today. Now, if you were tuned in for last night's show with Mitchell Gerber, that is one of the most hard-hitting and powerful shows that I think we've put together for some time right here on KBS. And I'm really pleased to see that people are sharing that information far and wide. You know, this whole journey that we're on, I love to take us into the woo. I really do. That's the stuff I really enjoy. But we can't turn away from uncomfortable truths when they come our way. And that's why I was determined to get last night's information out. So far, so good. It's escaped the censors over on YouTube. I don't expect that to last much longer. A big shout out to Mitchell for all of his hard work exposing all of that nasty live forced organ harvesting. So back to tonight. And I've got Bill Bean joining me in the second hour of the show. He'll be here just before the second hour. And for new listeners out there, you're going to get the chance to listen to a real-life, walking, breathing exorcist right here on the show tonight. They call him the spiritual warrior, and he's a very good friend of mine. And not only are we going to be talking about the demonic side of things and the spiritual warfare that's rampant right now, but myself and Bill, it's a bit like how we have these entanglements with the TFR family. Myself and Anthony talk about all the time how we'll be independently looking at similar or sometimes the exact same story, but without knowing it. And it's only when we come together afterwards we realise that there we were, unbeknown to one another, looking at the same thing, same time. And that same magic seems to occur with Bill Bean as well. And we're going to be talking about the nature of reality, Mandela effects, and how things are slightly changing. Now, I'll leave it just at that, and Bill will have a lot more to add to that when he comes on to the show. And I stupidly got excited today. I really did. I've been building myself up. I don't know why I do this. I fall for it every single time. The minute NASA start having the kind of trumpets blowing and the drums are rolling and they're telling you they're going to make a major announcement, there's a little voice in my head that kind of says, come on, Kev, it's NASA. Never a straight answer. Don't get too excited. But then there's a part of me, that space geek, the sci-fi lover, that is I'm absolutely waiting for the day that we get that official confirmation of something that we all pretty much suspect anyway. But no different again tonight. You know, the major anti-climax when I tuned in for the alleged broadcast that would once and for all tell us that there was life on Mars didn't quite pan out that way. And what we were told was the Mars rover, if you believe the Mars rover's up there, that's entirely up to you. But we're told it found organic compounds, possibly, potentially, the building blocks of life. But you know when NASA start a press conference by saying there's going to be absolutely no announcement to do with life on Mars today, that it isn't going to go well. So there's not much more I can say about the NASA announcement. I was hoping I was going to be able to base a show on that. But no, typical NASA, never a straight answer and always let us down. And I've wrote a note to myself to remember that next time, the major excitement and the best part about all of the NASA kind of announcements come in the speculation beforehand. Because at that point, you know, the imagination runs wild. You forget that they're an inept, controlled government agency, and you think for one moment, just one moment, that you might get closer to the truth. But then realization kicks in, and you kind of slap yourself about the back of the head, forever falling for it. But at least I'm honest, I'm telling you, I did fall for it yet again. We can all laugh at Kev tonight. And I hope nobody out there was expecting anything too big, because NASA certainly didn't disappoint. I'll tell you something else that's going on right now, something close to my heart. That's the Bilderberg meeting, which is taking place, the 2018 annual meeting. All of these criminals, world leaders, CEOs, banksters, media moguls, all of them descending on Italy right now for this year's gathering. And of course, back in 2013, I quite infamously went down to the gathering at Watford at the Grove Hotel. Probably the best 3 days, you know, actually out on location, kind of on the ground doing that citizen journalism. Probably the best 3 days I've spent the whole time I've been on YouTube. And, you know, I can't really compare it to TFR because TFR is a cut above all of that. But if there is anyone out there, you know, that might be new to Bilderberg or haven't heard about this group before, oh boy, where do you even begin? And one thing that I learned quite quickly when I personally went to the 2013 Bilderberg, you know, travelled down there 10 hours on bus, and you go down with all of the best intentions, right? You really do. There's a part of you really thinks that somehow you're going to change the world while you're down there. And unfortunately, it doesn't pan out like that, because after the Bilderberg meeting's finished, you come home and nothing really changes. And then for the 12 months that follows, you watch all of the talking points that were covered in this year's meeting kind of slowly rolling out. Them kind of taking the veil off the agenda that they were all setting at the Bilderberg meetings, wherever they have them. And the best part about the whole Bilderberg experience for me wasn't even shouting at the cars, not even shouting dogs abuse at these criminals when they were going in there. No, that wasn't it. It was the fact that you got to meet a whole heap, in fact, hundreds, maybe thousands of people who are all like-minded with yourself. Now, that doesn't mean you'll agree on every single topic, but you're talking about a group of people who are awake and aware to some of the things going on in the world. And one of those things, one of the more important groups out there that we can look to is the Bilderberg Group. Now, in recent years, the fact they've started their own website and they've got press officers and things like that, the secrecy that used to surround these meetings, that's kind of lifted. And that in itself, I think, is down to the exposure from alternative media. And we have to tip our hat to the late, great Jim Tucker, who was doing this years before any of us had ever heard about the Bilderberg Group. And eventually now we're at a point where they do have a press office. They do have statements they release. And I just wonder how influential this meeting is anymore. And I'm not saying that nothing happens at the Bilderberg meetings, because I'm going to go into something in a moment. There's definitely agenda set for the year there. But with so many people now knowing about the Bilderberg and what they're all about, where they came from, who was behind it, which you're all going to learn tonight, you know, I wonder if there's a more secretive meeting that we haven't heard of yet. It's almost like Area 51 in ufology. Like, I kind of look at Area 51 like the Blackpool or the Las Vegas, the tourist attraction of ufology. But not a lot goes on there anymore, if it ever did. Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. So there's one location where I think more secret stuff goes on. And like I say, the Bilderberg Group, you know, I tend to look towards Davos nowadays, the World Economic Forum, stuff like that. A lot of powerful people go there as well, and they really do. They're not as private. And if you take the time to watch some of their very dry roundtable presentations, Oh man, there's a lot to be gleaned from listening to that. And I think Davos is a whole part of the revelation of the method as well. It's almost like they don't seem to be that afraid to talk about what they're going to do when they're at Davos. Maybe because everyone's paying too much attention to Bilderberg. But I'll just go over this briefly here because we had something big happening today. And it's the secretive Bilderberg group gathers for its annual meeting next week, which is this week, starts today, finishes on the 10th of June. And it's taking place in Turin, Italy. Now, a collective of the elite North American and European politicians, business leaders, financiers, academics. The group has attracted a good deal of suspicion over the last half century, with conspiracy theorists confidently asserting that its members are plotting the New World Order and are hell-bent on global domination. They make that sound like a bit of a conspiracy theory there, but when you look into the roots of this and what they were set up to do, that's exactly what they're hell-bent on. Little drink of coffee, keep the mouth wet. So it says here, protesters who believe the Bilderberg group represents a shadow world government regularly picket their yearly meetups, creating a need for high security at all times. But attendees insist the group is simply a debating society taking place outside the glare of the public spotlight. It says the group publishes its list the day before the annual get-together. Between 120 and 150 are invited by its steering committee, along with a list of subjects they intend to discuss. Now, a lot of the alternative media have descended on Turin, Italy, as well. And one person who I actually got to meet down at the Watford one in 2013, somebody who I really can't speak highly enough of when it comes to his citizen journalism and his organisation Press for Truth, is a young guy called Dan Dix. Now, Dan Dix, he found himself on the wrong end of the law today just because he tried to ask questions. Take a listen to this.
Okay, I'm live. I was driving on my way to the G7, and I'm going to actually wait for a few people to get in here. You might not know who I am. I've been posting on Press for Truth with Dan for a few videos now, and my name is Lee, and I've just gotten a text from Dan saying that he has been detained at the Turin private airport. I haven't heard from him in about 15 minutes now. I don't know if his communication has been taken away, but I think it's important that the word gets out. So from what I could gather from his Instagram account, he was posting live videos with Luke Rudowski, and they were trying to interview Bilderberg members coming in at the airport. They were detained by police. Their information was gathered by police, and then they were released and told that they were allowed to stay at the airport. They were kind of going back and forth between the international airport and the private airport. It looks as though they've been detained for a second time and have not yet been released. I have not
to merge onto ON4.
Sorry, I'm like I said.
Merge onto ON4
I'm driving on my way to the.
Whoa, need to turn myself up. Yeah, so that's somebody was talking about how Dan Dix was basically detained at the airport. And I can happily tell people, I've been on to Dan Dix's Twitter feed. He has been released. He was trying to put some questions to the leader, I believe, of Serbia at the time, asking about populism rising in Europe. And this is one thing that happened down in Watford as well. You know, they talk there in the article I was reading from The Independent as if it's all just a bunch of crazy conspiracy theorists turn up and the police are there just to make sure there isn't any trouble, anything like that. I can tell you nothing can be further from the truth, because 2013, the local police were briefed to be ready for riots. And when we turned up there, it was the Metropolitan Police that had come out from London for the day, and they were all geared up, tooled up, ready for some kind of violence. And that's because the Bilderberg group and the mayor of Watford at the time, they had painted the protesters in a very negative light indeed. And this security, the vast security operations that take place around every single Bilderberg meeting, it's not to prevent any skirmishes between the protesters or anything outside. It's not even to stop the protesters from charging and storming the building where these people are discussing the next 12 months of all of our lives. It's to protect the criminals inside there. That's all it's about. You know, they're not caring about safety of people, the people that are outside, the people that are camping, anything like that. They're just worried. They're just worried because they know right now we're living in a world where there's an awakening going on. And the people inside the Bilderberg group call this the post-truth world. Now, I've seen a lot of speak on Facebook and Twitter and even people emailing me about number 11 on the agenda of talking points for this year's Bilderberg. And the fact we even get the talking points from the official bilderbergmeetings.org website, that should tell us that things have changed. Maybe perhaps there isn't quite as many important meetings going on there as there used to be. There's certainly as many important people attending, as I'll get into in a moment. But this post-truth world, I've seen people almost freaking out about this. But this term post-truth, this is actually nothing new at all. And it really first came to light around the time when they started hitting us with that whole fake news crap that they started throwing at anyone who happened to have an alternative theory, an alternative idea, a different narrative to that than what the mainstream were putting across. And the post-truth world is a term that the mainstream have been pushing along with fake news. And I'm speculating that with the Bilderbergers putting this on their agenda, this is them now going to start to really figure out and formulate ways, a plan to hit us with even harsher and more draconian censorship. Even worse than what we've been seeing in the past 12 months. And in the past 12 months, I honestly believe the censorship, and especially on YouTube, it's gone off the charts. It's been like an exponential curve. It's gone utterly crazy. And you can bet your bottom dollar that this is worrying the elites that are in control. And that's exactly why it's on their list of talking points. So don't freak out when you hear about this term post-truth. It's nothing new. In fact, there's even a definition for it in the dictionary. I just need to try and find that here now. Post-truth. And this comes from the English Oxford Dictionary. It's an adjective and it's relating to or denoting circumstances in which objective facts are less influential in shaping public opinion than appeals to emotion and personal belief. In this era of post-truth politics, it's easy to cherry-pick data and come to whatever conclusion you desire. Some commentators have observed that we are living in a post-truth age. Well, you know, if you look at the mainstream media, was there ever a time that they dealt in, like, truth? Haven't they always been, like, post-truth, anti-truth, agenda-driven media? Just saying, just an observation I've made. And then we go back to the actual talking points on the Bilderberg website. And there's 12 of them. Number 1 comes in at populism in Europe. Number 2, the inequality challenge. Number 3, the future of work. Now, this ties into the kind of stuff that we normally talk about on the show, the robotic revolution that may or may not be set to take your job from you. This is something that they're looking at, and you can bet that the universal basic wage will be a part of this discussion. Number 4, and probably should be number 1 on the list, is artificial intelligence. Number 5, the US before the midterms. They'll no doubt be talking about Russia Today, Sputnik, and the rise of fake news and how they can stop social media from influencing these elections. You know, if you want to stop the influence of elections, wouldn't you, like, stop the candidates being able to spend, like, vast amounts of money on advertising campaigns and social media campaigns to try and change the mind of the voters? It's just ridiculous. It really is. But then you got number 6, free trade. Number 7, US world leadership. Now, this is a controversial one because obviously America is still a major superpower in the world. But as we come towards the formulation of a new world order, there will be no one country out front. And I'm sure Donald Trump, his name will come up quite a lot in number 7, US world leadership. And they may even start to put nominations forward for who the next leading global superpower may be. Can I hear you saying China? Anyone? Number 8, hot on the heels of US world leadership, they're going to be discussing Russia. But why doesn't that surprise me? You know, by the time the whole meeting's done, probably Vladimir Putin will be to blame for everything that's discussed in the meeting. That's the way it goes. Number 10, Saudi Arabia and Iran. Now, without sounding too fearful or anything like that, we can see with the Iranian nuclear deal up in the air, the way Israel are acting as well, that something could be brewing over in the Middle East. And that's without throwing in Syria into the equation. Number 11, we've discussed the post-truth world. And number 12, current events. So that there is from the Bilderberg's own website, folks. It's not me speculating as to what they were going to speak about. Used to be that we would all kind of brainstorm the kind of stuff they'd be talking about. And now they've got their own website, a press officer, and they tell us everything that's going on. All nice and cozy, right? So who's going to the meeting this year? That's the important thing. And I've picked out a few people here. There's going to be people that you might find on the list. You might find them exciting. And you know, there's going to be some people I've missed out. You'll think, well, why did you miss him out, Kev? It's just some that caught my eye on the way down the list. And the first one that jumped off the page is Barroso, and that's Jose M. Duro Barroso, and he is the chairman of Goldman Sachs International. You always, absolutely always get the bankers there. There's a guy called Borge Brend, and he's the president of the World Economic Forum. Now, this World Economic Forum, that's something that I look to as being one of the major kind of steering groups for world politics, world affairs. And what happens at the World Economic Forum and Bilderberg, you might not think it affects you. You might think it's a bunch of billionaire cats all hanging out, playing golf, doing whatever they do behind closed doors. But it does. It does filter down to the masses. It's like the marching orders for the next 12 months. We come down and we see somebody called Anna Brnabic. Now, this is the person that Dan Dix ended up getting detained over because this is a sitting Prime Minister of Serbia. We come further down and we've got the Governor of the Bank of England, Mark Carney. Go figure. And then we've got a former Prime Minister from France, Bernard Cazeneuve. We've got Charles Cook. That's a political analyst that I found. Here's an interesting one. An assistant professor from MIT Media Lab. Now, this is somebody called Canon Dag Deverin. Then we come down further. We've got somebody called Bernard Emy from France. He just happens to be the Director General and the Minister of the French Armed Forces. Now, what's he doing at a meeting, a secretive meeting, where we really don't know exactly what goes on behind closed doors? What's that all about? I'll let your imagination kind of get to work there. So we come further down. We've got the head of BP, and that's somebody called Brian Gilvary. And then we've got Demis Hassabis. Now, Demis Hassabis is a very influential person indeed, because he's the man, he's the brains, and the CEO and co-founder of something called DeepMind. Now, DeepMind were the people that created AlphaGo. You remember that AI that just happened to trounce the world's best player from China at the ancient game of Go? That same DeepMind. So one of the very, very top AI experts and developers is there at Bilderberg. And we've also got the governor of Colorado, John Hickenlooper. So anyone from Colorado right now, I mean, how you feel about your tax dollars paying for old Hickenlooper to head over to a secret meeting? Interesting, eh? We come further down. We have got the Federal Minister of Defense of Germany, and that is Ursula von der Leyen. Again, a Ministry of Defense at a Bilderberg meeting? What could be wrong with that? We've got the Belgian Prime Minister, Charles Michel. Moving further down, we've got Zani Minton Bedoes. And that there is the editor-in-chief of The Economist. And I picked that out because there's a whole heap of media companies in here that we could look towards. And this is all part of this post-truth world, all part of the build-up towards the midterms in the US. And, you know, just in case the Russians or social media has an effect on the midterms, the same way as it managed to influence Brexit and Donald Trump's election. Absolute garbage. Now, before we get to the break, one of my favourite or least favourite Bilderbummers in the whole world is the cocaine addict himself. That's right, old gorgeous George Osborne. He'll be there. He'll be providing all the party wear, no doubt. He'll be lining them up right now around the pool table. Who honestly knows what goes on at night time in these meetings? We've got the Estonian Prime Minister there. We've got the Prime Minister from the Netherlands there as well. A Deputy Prime Minister from Spain. We've also got the Turkish Deputy Prime Minister. Oh, Jens Stoltenberg's there as well, the Secretary General of NATO. You know, him and George Osborne, they're like addicts. They should like get frequent Bilderberg miles or something because they love this gig. They're there absolutely every year. And of course, they're very powerful, very influential. And the man with his finger in many of the top cryptocurrency companies, Peter Thiel, he will be there as well. There are about 150 of these criminals turning up in Turin, Italy right now. And I take my hat off to all of the protesters and all of the citizen journalists who are out there doing the job that our media won't do. Why? Because their bosses are in the meeting. We'll be back in the other 15 minutes.
What is it good for?
We are TFR.
My faith in destiny is all I need to prevail.
Truth Frequency Radio.
Time to pay. Time to pay. Time to pay. Time to pay.
Welcome back, ladies and gents. I'm Kev Baker. You're tuned into tonight's Kev Baker Show. If you're tuning in to hear the Exorcist, the spiritual warrior, the man himself, Bill Bean, he'll be with us just before the end of this segment. Before I get back into it, just looking at the chat room, I really urge you all to check out the TFR live chat. It's like our hidden weapon. So many different, uniquely brilliant people hang out in there, all with their own points of view, their own opinions, and all of them with something uniquely brilliant to offer to this conversation and all the other good stuff that goes on in the chat as well. So if you want to head on over there, it's www.tfrlive.com/chat. And I promise nobody bites unless you ask them nicely. I'm only joking. But Lynn, I want to give Lynn a big thank you. I was kind of active on YouTube today. I'm going to be getting a lot more active on YouTube as the weeks and months pass. But she was saying she was on my YouTube 3 times today. And each time I had 33 likes on my video. And then Mr. MMBB333, I got it right. Also 33 likes. You know, something about that number. It's almost like the entanglement follows me because I spent so long in the past talking about the Masons, the 3rd degree, the 33rd degree. And we all know the woo attached to number 33. So a big thank you to Lynn for taking me off that not so magical number. Now, before the break, we were getting into all things Bilderberg. Booga booga. And of course, they were set up by Dutch royalty back in the day. And it picked up basically where the Nazis left off because their number one goal was to create a European superstate that I can happily say my country has given the middle finger to, but not so fast. Because we may be having yet another referendum on the final Brexit deal here in the UK. And the reason all of this has taken its time for us to leave that European monster is because the people were never, ever meant to say no. This is a major, major piece of a New World Order, having these individual unions made up of all the individual nations that used to have sovereign status, but are basically swallowed up into this New World Order monster. And the fact the British people gave it the middle finger, well, we're not finding it quite as easy to escape as we once thought. And of course, the Bilderbummers are also going to be discussing this post-truth world. And the Brexit vote itself, I mean, it's blamed on the Russians. The Russians done it. They're the ones that caused us to, swing the vote and we left the EU. Absolute bunkum. The people in Britain are happy being British. We don't want to be kind of melded into some hybrid that is happening over there in Brussels right now. And they're really worried because they call it fake news. They call it post-truth. They're just worried because people are waking up and they're opening their eyes and they're saying no more. Absolutely no more. So if anything we know about these controllers, these governments, these elites, the cabal, whatever name you want to put on them, they're pretty clever. And when they see us having a win, you can guarantee they're going to fire back with both barrels. I've got a couple of stories here that we really need to pay attention to. And one of them comes from April the 2nd this year. Might not be new news to people out there, but this really ties in with the post-truth world. It comes from Reuters, and the headline reads, Malaysia outlaws, quote, fake news, sets jail of up to 6 years. That's right, folks. You heard me right there. In Malaysia, they're outlawing fake news, and the penalty for posting something deemed fake news, 6 years in jail. It says Malaysia on Monday approved a law against fake news that would allow for prison of up to 6 years for offenders, shrugging off critics who say it's aimed at curbing dissent and free speech ahead of a general election. The Prime Minister, Najib Razak's government secured a simple majority in Parliament to pass the Anti-Fake News 2018 bill, which sets out fines of 500,000 ringgit, which equals $123,000. I would say that's probably in the region of about 70 to 80 grand over here in British pounds, something in that region. But more worryingly, a maximum 6 years in jail. Now, the first draft of the bill had actually proposed jail terms of up to 10 years. The government said the law would not impinge on freedom of speech, and cases under it would be handled through an independent court process. Quote, this law aims to protect the public from the spread of fake news while allowing freedom of speech as provided under the Constitution. Well, freedom of what speech? Freedom of some kind of speech as long as it agrees with the government or the political narrative that's doing the rounds at the time. This is a really dangerous precedent for Malaysia to be setting. And as we'll see as tonight's show goes on, it's not just them. Because it goes on to say here that the law defines fake news as news, information, data, and reports which is or are wholly or partly false, and includes features, visuals, and audio recordings. So an audio recording, an audio podcast, I say something that they deem to be fake news, I could literally, if I was Malaysian, be facing 6 years in jail. How can that be right? Now it says here it covers digital publications and social media and will apply to offenders who maliciously spread fake news inside and outside Malaysia, including foreigners, if Malaysia or a Malaysian citizen were affected. Now, co-opted by US President Donald Trump, the term fake news has quickly become part of the standard repertoire of leaders in authoritarian countries to describe media reports and organizations critical of them. Authoritarian countries, that'll be the US and the UK then, because you often hear the UK, the politicians, they love to call things fake news as well. And usually when they're shouting fake news, that means whatever they're talking about is so close to the truth, it frightens them. But what if I was to tell you it's not just Malaysia? And just today, over in France, the Rothschilds' #1 kiddie, old Emmanuel Macron, isn't he turning out to be such a compliant puppet for his Rothschild masters, because France is voting on a law to ban fake news. And here is how it could work. French politicians began debating a new law on Thursday designed to fight fake news. Now, first announced by the Rothschild puppet Macron in January, the ban aims to prevent extremist groups and Russian state-owned media companies from influencing French democracy with false information and spreading propaganda. The ban would only apply during the 3 months preceding an election. Opposition politicians and journalists have called it a threat to democracy and to free speech. But Macron, the creepy little Rothschild guy that he is, he says it's necessary to stop the circulation of lies made up to tarnish political officials, personalities, public figures, journalists. And here is exactly what you, ladies and gentlemen, need to know about this law in France. It says the wording of the bill says the law is responding to, quote, the recent electoral climate in countries like the US and the UK, where Russian trolls are believed to have attempted to influence votes. Macron is particularly worried about the Russia-owned media outlets Russia Today and Sputnik. In January, while standing next to President Vladimir Putin in Moscow, he attacked them for spreading, quote, lies about me and my campaign before his election. Now, it says here the false stories about him having a secret offshore bank account in the Bahamas spread rapidly online in May, a few days before his election. And I'm sure he was probably meaning all of the truth that came out about his past. You know, let's not even get into the fact that he was groomed by one of his teachers when he was a teenager. You know, that kind of old woman he hangs about with now? That's his partner. And she was his teacher in school. Let's not even go any further, because in France, admittedly, their consent laws are, well, not much to be spoke of at all. You know, you could probably get longer in jail for talking fake news or truth, as I prefer to call it, than you would for sleeping with somebody underage. But that's France for you. It says here that France has already laws against spreading false information, but the new bill says there are insufficient to quickly take down online content in order to stop its circulation and reappearance. Now, this is why when I was looking at the Bilderberg list today, I was actually quite shocked that there's nobody from Facebook publicly on the list. There's nobody from YouTube publicly on the list either. There's a couple of people from Google, and we've got the Google DeepMind AI guy, he's going, but nobody from Twitter there either. And I was expecting social media companies to have representatives there, you know, to get their marching orders for the fight ahead. And that fight is against truth. They call it fake news. Flip that on its head. Everything 180 from what these people tell you. Fake news equals facts. And facts scare them because they're kind of loose with their facts. And they hate it when Joe Bag of Donuts or Joe Blogs or Jane Doe, when they get exposed to real truth from real reporting, i.e. the alternative media. That's what this is all about, folks. Make no mistake about it. Now, it says here that Macron discussed his law with Mark Zuckerberg when the two met one-on-one in Paris in May. Facebook insists they are wholeheartedly co-opting or cooperating with the president's war on fake news. We limit the financial gains of the authors of false information. We delete fake accounts used to spread them, and we work with independent third parties on verification. And they also work with third parties passing on all of our data. Just saying. It says social media companies would have to allow users to flag stories they think are false. They would then have to tell the authorities and make public what action they are taking. Electoral candidates who spot a false story would be able to call on a judge to decide within 48 hours whether or not to take it down. It also gives the French Audiovisual Council, the broadcasting body that regulates radio and television in France, the authority to block foreign state-controlled broadcasters that publish false information. It says outside of Macron's En Marche party, I don't know how you say that. The response has been largely negative. Opposition politicians from both the left and the right have expressed outrage about the law. Marine Le Pen, leader of the far-right National Rally, previously the National Front, said it crossed a line between, quote, a good faith attempt to prevent misinformation and indirect censorship, and that it would infantilise French people. Jean-Luc Mélenchon of the hard left France Unbowed, another party, called it a crude attempt to control information. That's exactly what it's about, folks. It's all about controlling all of the information. Some of it good, some of it bad, but all of it together is really making people question the purveyors of reality that we've been so used to going to in the past. And the purveyors of reality, or the mainstream media, you know, these people that try to create this reality that we're all supposed to buy into around us with all of their programming and all of the brainwashing that they give us, of course, handed down by governments. You know, that this is what they're trying to counter because they're scared. They're utterly petrified because never at any time have they had this amount of people starting to become aware, maybe not fully aware of all of the things that are going on. And let's face it, who can honestly know all of the conspiracies out there surrounding these people that go to the likes of the Bilderberg meeting? They're up to too many shenanigans and committing too many crimes to really keep on top of it. But the fact that people are starting to question their leaders, the mainstream media, things around them that they always held to be true, that's what frightens them. It truly does. It says countries around the world have been trying to tackle fake news since the issue rose to prominence during the 2016 elections. Mexico signed a deal with Facebook to combat the spread of false information through measures like awareness campaigns. The social network has taken out full-page ads in Mexican newspapers, warning people to question information they see online. Well, I would actually put out something to tell not only the people in Mexico, but people worldwide. Question absolutely everything, whether it's coming from social media, whether it's coming from your very favourite, the prettiest newsreader that they've got on the telly, whether it's coming from the person that you voted for. Question everything. Even if it's coming from me. I've told you that often in the past. I absolutely encourage the fact that you question everything I say because I don't have all of the answers. I'm literally just like one of you, only I've got a mic. Sometimes I get it right, sometimes I get it wrong. And I'm totally open to having my mind changed because that's how we learn. We have to be open to other ideas other than the ones we hold true to ourselves. But it goes on here to finish this up. It says, Macron has tackled the issue more directly and consistently than most leaders, both through his public statements on Russian state media and his meeting with Zuckerberg. Many suggest his own experience with trolls has made the war on fake news a personal one, not to mention the fact the guy's rolling about France thinking he's some kind of reincarnation of the ancient god Jupiter. What's that all about? Oh, wait a minute, though. Macron might call that fake news, right? Because it's kind of uncomfortable listening, isn't it? He's the one that said it, not me. He seems determined to develop a more forceful approach than other countries by putting legal obligations on social media sites. His En Marche party has a big majority in the National Assembly, which will vote on legislation Thursday evening. And if it passes, which is likely, it will then go to the Senate to be debated and voted on before it's signed into law. And I'll make a bold prediction. It's going to be signed into law. I can almost guarantee that. Because, like I say, this is one of the major threats for governments right now. And for all the people out there who think Trump is draining the swamp and the next best thing since QAnon and that kind of thing, let me put this to you. Maybe this will give you a slightly different way to look at things. We would all agree that Macron, you know, the Rothschild boy, definitely part of the New World Order setup, right? He worked for the Rothschild bankers. He's talking about fake news, stuff like that. Theresa May, another one, definitely in the club, right? She's not like Donald Trump, like we're told. I mean, she's not a thorn in the New World Order side. And yet when the three of them, Macron, Trump and May, went and bombed Syria, it was terrible on the parts of May and Macron, yet all the Trumpites out there said it was part of Trump's plan. And why was he cozying up to Macron, the Rothschild boy, for the, was it the Bastille parade? The military parade over in France where they couldn't get closer to one another? They looked like there was a bit of man love going on, to the point where Donald Trump calls Macron his go-to guy in Europe. I thought Donald Trump was draining the swamp. Yeah, if he's not draining the swamp and he's sitting beside swamp monsters like May and Macron, I don't know, I'm just saying. And, you know, I've been thinking about this, and this is going to be controversial probably to the Trumpites out there, but I don't mind. You know, all of this Russian collusion, Russian fake news, all that investigation with Mueller and everything going on right now, you know, that's actually quite convenient for Trump, isn't it? Why did I say that? And I say it's convenient for Trump because all the way through his absolutely brilliant candidacy, you know, I loved him. He sounded like one of us, right? I think that was part of the plan, though. I really do. He always said he was going to drain the swamp. He was going to go after the sex gangs and all the rest of it, Clinton Foundation. What was that line he said about Hillary? If I was in charge, you'd be in jail already, right? But this whole Russian investigation and everything going on in the background, that's kind of hindering what Trump can do, right? Or that's so we're told. Or could that be like a good cover for the fact he was never going to drain the swamp in the first place? Because we all admit there's absolutely nothing to do with Russian collusion or anything like that going on, right? That in itself's fake news. But yet Trump's still kind of hindered by all of that going on? I'm not sure. Just saying. Something worth thinking about. And listen, I'm not from America. He's not my president. It's nothing to do with me in reality. But just, you know, maybe worth stepping back, opening your eyes. And if you voted for Trump, just, you know, looking at what he's doing. Has he ticked the boxes that you thought he would tick the boxes originally? That's all I'm asking. So watch out for more of this fake news war as the weeks and months progress, because this is something that most definitely isn't going to go away. Now, I'm going to be joined in a moment by my special guest tonight, Bill Bean. And there's an increase in interest in the moment in spiritual matters, especially spiritual warfare, something we cover often on the show. And today, when you see the aforementioned Rothschild boy Macron and Bibi, evil as heck Netanyahu, standing in Paris, rubbing a giant crystal shiny ball, you know, it's no wonder people think that the elites, the world leaders, they're all in some kind of creepy, kind of satanic or witchcraft club, right? And if you think I'm making this up, I'm not. And I'm not talking about when Trump was rubbing the big crystal ball with the Saudi and the Egyptian leader over in Saudi Arabia. No, this is another shiny crystal Palantir-like ball. And I'll post an image in the chat room shortly. But I think the rise in spiritual warfare is connected to the fact that a lot of these world leaders are practicing in dark, dark arts. And the reason is we've lost our way from the precepts of God's scripture and their teachings. And we know that something is very wrong. Doctors can't help us. Lawyers can't help us. Politicians can't help us. No, these are issues that are not of the physical realm and that we are accustomed to. In our general notion of reality, we do not make allowances for such things as spiritual warfare. But Bill Bean's ministry deals with spiritual deliverance on a constant basis. And like Bill, you can go from being victim to victor in one foul swoop. So without any further ado, let me hopefully now, by the power of communications, contact the brilliant Mr. Bill Bean. And if I can't get him on before the end of the break here, I will certainly contact him during the break. We've got so much to get into tonight. There we go. Bill Bean, I've been building you up for about an hour now, sir. Welcome back to the show, man.
Thank you, my brother. It's always great to be on with you. And boy, do we ever have a lot to talk about again.
We really do. And, you know, we're going to be coming up on a hard break in a moment, Bill. But, I mean, how have you been lately? Are you still working as tirelessly as ever? I understand you were under the weather lately, right?
Yeah. Boy, I tell you, Kev, I haven't been sick. I never get sick. I haven't had the flu in like 25 years. You know, God has really blessed me with good health. But something came on me recently, and I equated it as some type of allergic reaction to something which caused a severe post-nasal drip that went down into my chest, which caused bronchitis in the beginning stages of walking pneumonia. I mean, I was very, very ill there for a little while, and I'm happy to tell you that I'm back to 100% now. I praise God for it. And this is something, like you were saying, Bill, I mean, you're typically a healthy guy. You're never laid down by any kind of illness. And that in itself, I mean, that's something new, and that's quite strange, right? Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that, you know, and I can understand it as well. There's a couple things that I suspect might be at work there, you know, that caused the allergic reaction in the first place. And then, quite frankly, I think I'd just gotten worn down so bad that, you know, as you know, Kev, I'm nonstop. And, you know, the continuous travel like this over the last several years now, it's like, just think about a rock band being on tour for like 3 years. That's pretty much how it's been. There's been no break. And so, you know, when you get worn down like that, you know, it's possible that something like that could come along and really affect you. But there's other things in play as well, which I think the air we're breathing, you know, the chemicals that are being sprayed in the air, I think that plays a part in it. And certainly the devil would love nothing more than for me to be flat on my back and ineffective and not being able to help anybody. Exactly. I mean, you're like a wide receiver, a star quarterback for the light. That's what you are. And the other team, the darkness, they would like nothing more than to see you taken out of the game. And before we get to the break, you know, there might be some people out there who are thinking, oh, Kev's got an exorcist on. I don't even believe in all that demonic possession stuff. Well, just today, an article I was reading, it says, a psychiatrist who teaches at the New York Medical College and Columbia University says he has studied thousands of claims of demonic possession for 25 years. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen? He has found that it is indeed very, very real. Dr. Richard Gallagher, a Princeton and Yale-educated psychiatrist, tells The Telegraph that he's not just using his intuition, but he's dealing with this from a very scientific point of view. And I'll leave it on that note because we're just about to go to the break. And for any new listeners out there who haven't heard of Bill before, I urge you to check out the spiritual warrior himself. He's over on YouTube. You can see him in The Haunting, A Haunting, both from 2006 and 2017. The earlier one shows Bill's very, very interesting childhood that put him on the path to where he is today. And Bill Bean is a world-renowned spiritual warfare and deliverance minister, exorcist. And as I said, he's known as the spiritual warrior. But on top of that, he's also an internationally known author, lecturer, and paranormal supernatural expert. And I'm glad to say that over the course of the past few years, Bill has become a very good friend. Thank you.
Frequency Radio is your number one.
You must unite what has been set asunder.
We are TFR. Truth Frequency Radio.
Feel it coming in the air.
Yeah.
The sonic symbols everywhere.
Yeah.
I'm addicted to the truth.
I'm ready.
It's a dangerous love affair. Can't be scared when it goes down. Stand for freedom here and now.
Undo the spell.
Only thing that's on my mind is who's gonna free this town
Bring it.
tonight. Who's gonna free this town tonight?
Our number 2 is upon us on tonight's Kev Baker Show already, but that is good news because that means I'm joined by the spiritual warrior, Mr. Bill Bean. And you can find his work at billbean.net or billjbean.com. And you can look at his new book, The Connection, and some of his previous works as well. And I was catching up with my good friend. He's like a brother to me, is Bill. And Bill, during the break, my mum even messaged me. She says a big hello. You really are like part of the Baker family now, sir. You really are.
I love that. And hi, Pearl, and I hope she's doing great. God bless her. And your brother as well. I just overjoyed when you said Ken was just doing so well, and I pray that he's still doing well, and I'll always be there for him.
Oh, absolutely, Bill. His life has been on the up ever since he had that chat with you. New job back home. And he's even now got his own flat. So Ken is absolutely brilliant. And for anyone out there, you know, who is experiencing any problems, be they of a demonic nature, and Bill does life coaching as well. You know, he's one of the most approachable guys in this whole business, and I urge you to get in touch with Bill. But Bill, you know, we often talk about the exorcisms and the kind of things that go bump in the night, but I was sharing with the audience that it's almost uncanny, the fact that independently, uniquely, without ever prompting one another, we always seem to be on the same kind of frequency. And by that, you'll send me a link at something I've looked at. I'll send you a link at something you've looked at. And it's happened again, right? Because the last time we were talking about strange animal behavior. And since then, we've had not one, but 2 really good sightings of Nessie in Loch Ness. And that, in a way, ties into the demonic side of things, in my personal opinion. Because when you look back at Nessie historically, Bill, the sightings of that monster, and it could be called nothing else, they only really started to pick up in frequency after a certain Aleister Crowley had lived beside Loch Ness. So we've got sightings of Nessie, and you posted something to me about a very strange sighting somebody had when they were in a boat, right?
Yeah, and I'm in total agreement with you, everything you said, and praise God for that. So God brings people into our lives for a reason, and God will also take people out of our lives for a reason. But obviously, you know, he connected us for a reason. We praise him for that, and we always are on the same page and the same wavelength, and it's been that way from day one, and I praise God for it. And I totally agree with everything that you said. And yes, isn't it funny that, you know, Aleister Crowley, you know, was right there, and then all of a sudden you have the appearance of what I would call this Leviathan. That's a sea monster that's, you know, demonic sea monster that's mentioned in the Bible, the Leviathan. And it's very interesting that it's right there and that he was there. And yes, to answer your question about this recent thing, I just saw this. You know, I've had a very busy day, and I got in a little while ago, and I just happened to see this this news story about a fisherman in California, and he was in a boat fishing somewhere in the Sierra Nevada foothills lake, and all of a sudden he looks and sees this mountain lion swimming in the lake. Now, there's a video accompanied with this, and I looked at the video, and it's just absolutely mind-boggling. I've certainly never seen that before, and I've never heard of anything like that before. But this certainly ties into what we've been talking about this strange animal behavior, and perhaps it is based on frequency and vibration that is taking place, and whether that is coming from those towers, satellites, or under the ground, I don't know. But whatever's taking place is, in my opinion, causing the wildlife to act erratically and do things that are way out of character, and even coming up to people's homes and cars and things like that.
And I've watched the video myself, and it's one of the most bizarre, out-of-place things I think I've seen in a long time. And I look at a lot of bizarre stuff, Bill. I've posted that in the TFR family chat room over at tfrlive.com/chat. And we were also talking about the fact, you know, you mentioned it there. Is it something vibrational? Is there something to do with the frequency? And it's not just the animal kingdom, because a time ago, I reported on diplomats in Cuba that were the victims of sonic weapons. And you were even telling me that this has happened now more recently in China, Bill, right?
Yes. And some of these people have suffered permanent brain damage from this. And so this is very real. And these frequency and vibration weapons are real. And I recall over 20 years ago, when I first started digging into everything, saying that, the powers that be, and they know who they are, and more importantly, God knows who they are, and they are some of the rulers on the earth, and they are of the satanic seed line, and whether you call them Illuminati or whatever you want to call them, they are the powers on the earth, and they're working directly under the devil and his minions. And they have had this plan for a long time, and these capabilities, started to come into play over 20 years ago, and it's been a gradual progression to where we are right now. And, if you just step outside of it, and I always say, and you've heard me say this a million times, Kev, don't believe a word that I say. Don't take my word for it. Do the research and open your eyes and step out of your everyday life, step out of that box and take a look at what's really going on. And you're going to be astonished to see how far we have come from, 20 years ago, and how far down we have spiraled since that period as a society and, the world in general, with all of these things taking place. It's just absolutely unfathomable that this amount of activity, and mostly negative activity, could be taking place simultaneously and for a sustained period of time like this.
Absolutely. And, you're at it again, Bill, because unbeknown to you, about 5-10 minutes before you came onto the show, I was telling people exactly the same thing. I was urging them, in fact. I was demanding they don't take my word for anything. All they need to do is go out and check what I'm talking about. And, even if they form a different opinion, they'll still see that I don't have to make this stuff up anymore, because reality is becoming so much more stranger than fiction. And you were even telling me about 300 people in Southern California, Bill. Would you like to share this one with the audience?
Yeah, and this is a news story. So this isn't just somebody on the internet saying this. This was a local news story that was covered in Southern California, and I happened to see this video a couple days ago. And in the story, it was talking about 300 people in this area of Southern California and these people are not related, and they, are people from all walks of life, and in most cases, good and productive people that work every day and are, functioning in society in a normal way. But now they're all hearing these voices inside of their head. And again, 300 people in the same area who are, in most instances, not related, don't know each other, and they're all hearing these voices in their heads. And this is, if you look at something like that, you go, wow, wait a minute. If it's one person saying they're hearing this, okay, well, you could say perhaps schizophrenia could be involved or whatever, but you're talking about 300 people in one area that are saying they're experiencing this. So there is something going on. And again, it goes right back to frequency and vibration and these types of psychotropic weapons that are able to manipulate the mind in such a way that through frequency and vibration, the voices can be produced in one's head.
And we know that they've got the technology to do this. I've covered that with Dr. Eric Karlstrom. Targeted individuals all around the world. But I think there's something even more going on here, Bill. I mentioned to you when I was speaking to you about something I term hyper reality. I don't even know if that's the correct term to use, but I use it because reality isn't the same as the reality that I used to remember. Well, we can look at the Mandela effects, and I'm sure there's some of them we can get to in the next segment of the show. But it almost feels to me, Bill, as if this kind of New World Order, it comes complete with some artificial electronic construct, which right now is nearing completion. I mean, that's just my opinion. We can look at the D-Wave computer that we spoke of before. It's basically turning our reality, our dimension here, into Swiss cheese. There's that many holes.
I agree.
Yeah, that many holes and portals to other worlds now. We really have no idea what consequences that may bring. And I think all of this together, the weird animals, people hearing voices, Mandelas, and a whole heap of other stuff that we're going to get into tonight, I think all of this is symptomatic of this new matrix that they're pulling us into.
I totally agree, brother. I really do. And furthermore, just look at what's taking place right now with these eruptions. You know, you have the Kilauea, you have the Fuego in Guatemala. You have two of them, Merapi, and that's in Indonesia, and then the Karasinsi, I think that's how you say it, Karensi, it's in Indonesia. So you have four of these things active right now that have erupted in a, gigantic way. This is just, again, in my lifetime, I've never heard of things like this taking place. And, there's
Bill,
some other things to touch on as well.
Last year, Bill, I mean, Johnny Whistles reminded me that we were really getting hot under the collar because there was a report about 20 active erupting volcanoes on the planet. And with all the Kilauea and the Fuego just recently, we decided to go back and count again, Bill. And I was shocked to find that no longer are there 20 erupting volcanoes. It's doubled. There's 40.
Wow. See, I mean, again, Kev, I've never heard of these things in my life. This is some of these things. And, I mean, we could go in so many different directions here. I sent you another video. And how much time do we have in this segment before you got to hit the break?
We've got plenty time. We've got 15 minutes here, Bill.
Okay, so here's another thing. This is a relatively new phenomenon that's taking place, is that people are reporting, and look, I fly all the time. I fly every week. I mean, I can't tell you how many thousands of miles that I've logged in and continue to log. But people are reporting now that they're seeing what looks to be airplanes stopping in midair in the sky. And I sent you a video before the show of a clip that this man took. It was a 34-second clip. He's videoing this supposed plane, and it may not be a plane at all. For all we know, it could be, an unidentified flying object cloaking itself. Whatever the case may be, I looked at it first. I looked at the 34 seconds, and I noticed like a flash around the 12-second mark. And so I said, okay, I'm going to go back now, and I'm going to do frame by frame. So I'm going to stop the video, and I stopped at around 11 seconds, and then I clicked. I took the little, the mouse thing and clicked on the little ball there and went frame by frame. And sure enough, when I got to the 12-second mark, I could see this energy coming out of the nose of the plane or whatever the object is, and it was going up like a 45 in the sky. So there was some kind of energy coming from that craft, that object, going into the sky. So was that some type of cloaking device? I don't know, but I clearly saw it. It's there. And, I find it to be amazing that, these things are now being spotted on a regular basis. And furthermore, another very disturbing trend that is happening is that, and I personally have been on several flights lately that have had this happen to where, and I don't get this, Kev, something has changed in the atmosphere, because now all of a sudden you have these regular reports of windshields of planes cracking and breaking, windows breaking in the planes, all of these. There was a story from 2 days ago. This plane took off from, I believe, Dallas, and it was flying to Phoenix. And shortly into the flight, and I don't understand this either, because usually planes fly above these types of things, but this hailstorm or something, they say, absolutely just devastated this plane, cracked both sides of the windshield, destroyed the front of the plane, the nose cone, so it's a miracle that they got the plane down. That's number one. And secondly,
I've been noticing these planes as well, Bill, and I was I've been very hesitant to bring it up because my mum, she was due to fly out to Spain, and she came back just recently, and thankfully, thank God,
she got back safe. Yeah,
she was telling me, I actually finally decided to tell her about your experiences and what we'd been noticing with the planes, and she says, Kevin, it's actually quite worrying because the turbulence there and the turbulence on the way back is something that she's never experienced before. So I'm with you. There's definitely something changing up there. And a story from May the 30th, there was the famous one, obviously, where the woman tragically lost her life getting sucked out of one of the windows. And I was saying to my mum,
God bless her.
It's such a rare event. But what makes it even worse is the fact that all of these stories in the days and weeks afterwards, one here, 211 people on a plane forced to make an emergency landing after, quote, cracks appear in a window mid-flight. Now, I remember growing up, Bill, and, I think flying has to be one of the safest forms of travel out there. Okay, when you hear of a plane crash that are usually high, all fatalities and very tragic, but you compare that to the amount of car crashes we have, and when you look how many planes are flying every day, it's actually statistically probably really safe. But like you, I think there's something changing, something in the pressure in the atmosphere. It's almost as if the planet has finally been terraformed and it's not suitable to us or planes anymore.
I have to tell you, Kev, I am going to really scale back on my flight travel after this next trip. I don't feel comfortable any longer. And, you made mention of that poor lady. God bless her and her family. I'm so sorry that happened to her. And do you know, and I think I mentioned this in a previous show, that the day before that, I was on a flight, and I think I was coming home from Florida, I want to say. And the last 45 minutes of that flight was a nightmare. People were screaming. People were vomiting. I was praying. And I'm telling you, I really had thoughts about that plane going down because we were at, that's how bad it was for 45 minutes, the last 45 minutes of that flight. And when the plane finally landed, it landed so hard that things came out of the overhead. Things were flying around again, and when it landed, it veered hard right. And that itself, people were screaming and panicking again and vomiting. I mean, it was just a nightmare. And I've had a couple of other flights since that time that were not on that scale, but still very disturbing. And I'm thinking, what is going on here? Something is definitely very, very wrong.
And Bill, I know it's going to be really hard for you to do this, right? But I think it would put all of us at ease here on the network because we all love you dearly. But if you could somehow get there by car or bus or train, I think we would all be a lot happier. But I want to quickly go back to the strange case that you sent me of the hovering object, because I'm not calling it an airplane, because that for me, Bill, does not demonstrate anything that I'm used to seeing in aviation. And you sent me the image, and I'm going to post it in the chat room for people to see as well. And it's almost like a series of balls or orbs coming out from one side of the plane. And like you say, a 45-degree angle. And of course, we'll have to speculate whether it's coming towards the plane or out of the plane. And I said to you, potentially, this could be a holograph or a hologram, because, I mean, it looks almost...
You could be right, brother.
Yeah, it's almost as if the orbs get slightly bigger to the point where, voila, there's a big plane in the sky.
Yeah. I wonder if they're doing some kind of testing like that, and if it's from the Blue Beam technology that they are, testing these holograms and these holographic images. Now, it very well could be, because another thing that people are reporting in the skies from all over the world are now figures. They're seeing faces in the skies. They're seeing figures in the skies. They're seeing hands in the skies. There was one video, I can't remember where it came from, but it was recent, where they saw this big eye. It was like the serpent's eye in the sky. And so that's another phenomenon that's taking place in mass currently. So I just wonder if they really are testing out that blue beam technology, which could be coming from satellites.
It really is strange, and I've posted that in the chat room for people to see. I'm going to post it to my mum now as well, Bill, or she'll definitely put me on the naughty step if you can't see that picture. But there's definitely something really weird going on with all of this. Now, I like what you said there about blue beam. This is something that we have to take into consideration, because lately we've been seeing a lot of, air quotes, disclosure news. And it's coming out of the Pentagon. It's coming from something called To the Stars Academy of Arts and Crafts, I think, Arts and Science. And I think there's a push right now, Bill. It's almost as if they're programming us. They're setting the stage for aliens, demonic forces, whatever title people want to put on it. And then when you see this plane that's almost projected there into the sky, again, it's speculation, but I think we're moving towards a time where blue beam is a real potential.
Yeah, and I saw another story today, Kev, from Chicago. This is a video that I saw on YouTube, and this person was videotaping this. Bright, sunny sky in Chicago, and all of these different colors. They look like harp colors to me. Those harp rainbow type of colors. It all was in the sky there in Chicago. So it'd be very interesting to see if some type, and I pray not, I certainly don't want any type of, horrific event to take place, but it really will be interesting to see that if some type of, horrible weather event takes place there very soon due to capturing those types of colors, which appear to be harp-like colors in the sky.
See, this the harp again, back to that. And, you mentioned the hand in the sky, Bill, right? And I think that was a video that actually came from Mr. BBMM333. And this was like some kind of elongated fingers projecting right up into the sky. I mean, that's not a cloud for me, Bill.
No, absolutely not. I mean, that is, there's thought behind that. There is purpose behind that. So whomever that is, whether that is, our people in these black shadow government agencies that are doing this, or if it is someone else from somewhere else that is doing it, that is some type of, hologram as far as I'm concerned, and some type of projection, and there's a message behind that.
Bill, I was talking then, we've got the animals, we've got these things with the planes, the things in the sky, and I was describing it as a hyper reality, and you tentatively, well, you agreed with me. I mean, how would you explain everything that's going on just now to the listeners? I mean, are they trying to move us into some almost artificial reality?
I believe it. I really do. And this is why in the Bible, the scriptures tell us to guard our minds. It's very important for us to guard our minds. And the only way that we can guard our minds is by the power of God. So this is why it's so important for us to have a strong personal connection with God, because if we do, then we are invoking the power of God over us, and that means over our minds as well, to where God will be with us, and he will keep us protected and guarded and give us the spiritual discernment to know the truth. What is real, what is not real, what is true, what is not true, and he'll help us to move forward past all of this garbage, because this is an all-out assault on the mind and the spirit, and which will affect the body as well. So this isn't, in my opinion, this is an all-out assault on mankind right now.
Absolutely. And before we go to the break, we've got a couple of minutes, but I mean, your normal, typical work, Bill, going and helping families that have been afflicted by these demonic possessions and demonic forces, is that still on the rise, or is that starting to kind of curb itself a little now?
No, it's still on the rise, and I mean, I'm still getting message after message after message, and now I've actually sent a couple of the cases to some other people that I know that because I'm so busy and frankly, I haven't been 100% over the last couple of weeks. I'm back to 100% now, but I've actually contacted a couple of friends of mine who do this work and have sent some cases their way because there are just so many people in need. And I find this as well, Kev, that yes, there are a lot of people who contact me that are having real supernatural problems. However, there are some people recently that have contacted me that are having some severe mental issues intertwined with this. And again, this is where it comes down to the frequency and vibration being manipulated to create these types of mental problems and breakdowns working in conjunction with the demonic presence as well.
Absolutely. It's almost leaving them like a blank slate, a host for these entities. And we'll be back after the break to discuss more of this and even straight up with Bill Bean.
No hype, no fear. We are TFR.
Frequency Radio.
I'll stand tall in the face of tyranny. I want it all on my freedom and liberty. I'll keep my guns, you can keep your security. I'll stand tall in the face of tyranny. I'll stand tall in the face of tyranny. I want it all on my freedom and liberty. I'll keep my guns, you can keep your security. I'll stand tall in the face of tyranny.
Welcome back. We're moving into the final segment of tonight's Kev Baker Show. With me, Kev Baker, and my very special guest, Mr. Bill Bean, the spiritual warrior. Check him out at billbean.net. He's got his new book, The Connection, out. And tonight, we're talking about all of the changes in reality, all of the strange stuff that is going on right now. You know, the last time Bill was on, we spoke about strange animal behavior. And tonight, we opened up by talking about a mountain lion that is out swimming in a lake in Southern California. Now, from there, we went into the strange, anomalous behavior that's happening around aircraft right now. What's causing all of these windshields to crack? What's causing cabin windows to pop out from where they are and cause depressurization of the craft? I mean, there's some really strange stuff, but if you thought that was strange, just wait till you hear what we're going to get into next, because Bill sent me something the other day, and I like to pride myself on looking at the kind of stranger, paranormal things out there. But I was lost for words because, Bill, you sent me a couple of videos, and they were relating to statues. Now, I would actually class this as some kind of almost physical Mandela effect, and I say that because usually the Mandela effects are just things that we hold in our memory, the names of books, lines from a film. People know all the kind of common ones out there, but now we're actually starting to see reality, physical objects, and in this case, statues, starting to change appearance. Talk to me about this, Bill.
It sure looks that way, Kevin. I know a lot of people out there listening to this might think that we're crazy, when I start to talk about this. But again, you can believe what you want to believe, but I urge you to take a look into this for yourself. And, I have to thank my good friend Ronnie Davis for making me aware of this. He makes YouTube videos all the time. And I saw his, and then there was a couple of other people who made videos as well about this. And I thought, wow, I looked at it, and right away, it took me right back to my own home as a child when we saw the painting of my sister that was altered, and it seemed like it had suddenly come to life. And that's what's happening with these statues now. Mount Rushmore. I just urge people to just Google it, punch it up, Mount Rushmore, and look at some images. And it looks to me like these things are really, they have a lot more definition, I'll tell you that. It looks like the eyes are much more defined. It looks like they have eyeballs now. It looks like George Washington all of a sudden has, you could see the details in his coat, and the facial features now are much more sharp. And again, don't take my word for this. Look at it for yourself. Punch it up, look at it. And the Lincoln Memorial is another thing that now seems to have this different look and a much more defined look now. And it's as if almost like these statues are coming to life, per se. And
Bill, that does. It sounds bizarre. It really does. But yeah. I'm going to back you up because I've seen this and I used my own two eyes. I used my own judgment. And if I didn't see it, I'm man enough and we're close enough for me to say to you, well, Bill, nah, I don't really see this. But I can tell the audience, like I was saying to you during the break, I've got no explanation for this because it is almost as if things are taking on an actual hyper reality. They're becoming more and more lifelike.
Yeah, no question about it. And, I just urge people to go and look at this for themselves and just be prepared for a shock because it doesn't look the same to me, that's for sure. And then a couple of other things. Now, we've been talking about the airplanes and the problems that they've been having and the atmosphere and things of that nature. Well, another thing that I guess would fall under Mandela effect is, and this is something else that, I'd seen a video and then Ronnie Davis did a video on it and some other people did as well. And it caused me to really look because, I'm traveling on these planes all the time and I wasn't paying attention until I saw the video and I thought, okay, well, the next flight I take, I'm going to really look at this and see for myself because they were saying in the video, and they're showing video and pictures of airplanes, that now the engines of the planes are out in front of the wing. That was never the case. It was about 3/4 of the engine was under the wing. So you'd have about 1/4 of the engine that was out from under the wing, but 3/4 of that engine would be under the wing. And now all of a sudden, the engines are out from under the wing. And so sure enough, the next flight that I got on, before I boarded that flight, I was able to look outside of the window in the gate area and looked at other planes and their engines. And those engines are, in fact, way out in front of the wing now. And they're also not only out in front of the wing, but they look like they're very low to the ground now. They look like they're only about maybe 5 feet off of the ground. I do not remember them that way, and I fly all the time.
Either do I, and I'm so glad you brought this up because I had seen one of these posts on the Facebook as I've been scrolling down, and it just went so far against my normalcy bias that I had to keep scrolling. Because it just looked alien to me. And I can't say that I'm an aircraft aficionado or anything like that, but it just looked wrong. And that tells me that my brain is used to seeing a different pattern, something different from that. Like you described, the way it used to be, but not anymore.
Yeah. It doesn't even look safe, Kev. The way that it used to be, in my mind, the engines were firmly mounted underneath of the wings. And now they're like on this bracket that's coming out from the wing, and it doesn't even look safe. It doesn't even look like it would be secured enough to endure that type of pressure on it. I mean, it just, to me, it is absolutely not right. I don't remember it that way. It's bizarre.
And Bill, this kind of ties into, but more so the statues, but, one of your first books, you wrote about something that happened during your childhood with a particular painting. And we spoke about this during the break. And I think this is very relevant and very important to put this out here because it sets a precedent. It shows that, this kind of thing that we're talking about with the statues, it's not a standalone kind of case, is it?
No, not at all. Because back in 1979, 1979 is when, we had that painting in our home, the painting of my sister, and it was a painting of her at the age of 3. And it was a nice little girl in a, nice dress and all that stuff, innocent-looking painting. And then all of a sudden it had taken on a life of its own, and it changed into a sinister-looking little girl. And it was like as if the painting had come to life. And as soon as I saw those statues, the Mount Rushmore thing and all that, that's right where it took right where my thoughts went, right back to that.
It's very, very strange indeed. Now, Bill, I'm not sure where you would like to go next, but I know there is one story that we mentioned during the break, and this really is an indication of the dark forces that are running the planet right now. And I never, ever thought I would see a day when a self-admitted pedophile would be able to, A, run for office, but not only that, garnish 1,000 signatures in doing so. I'm going to play just maybe 1-2 minutes of this, Bill, in case the audience haven't heard this. And this will probably make listeners literally sick. Take a listen to this.
This is Nathan Larson, an accountant from Charlottesville, Virginia, running as an independent candidate in Virginia's congressional election.
This is hard to read and certainly hard to hear. He admittedly thinks it's okay for adults to have sex with children. He even wants to make it legal.
Normally, we don't give people with abhorrent beliefs a platform in which to share those ideas. But this man is running for Congress, and as much as I personally hate to put this man on TV, we believe it's important for people to know why he's running for Congress. Nathan Larson told me he wants to, quote, restore liberty and make incest legal.
What about sexual relations with your own children?
Like, I would favor, legalizing incest.
Why is that?
Just because personal freedom.
What about the children's rights? Wouldn't that be rape to have sex with a child?
Well, like with girls, I mean, I just believe that it should be for fathers to make those decisions.
And you don't find anything wrong with that?
I mean, it's not for me to intrude on another family and tell them what they should do.
Wouldn't that be really dangerous for children?
I don't see how we know that.
Children are human beings. They're not property. What about their protection?
The law doesn't treat them as having the full rights of adults.
And I can't listen to any more of that deprived pervert, Bill. And this is somebody running for office?
This, in my opinion, Kev, he's a demon-filled individual. And I cannot say on the air what I would do if someone, if I had a little child and someone like that tried to do something. And I'm urging parents to really pay attention to your children, pay attention to where they're going, what they're doing, who they're communicating with. The internet is such a dangerous thing. It can be such a good and valuable resource for information and learning things, but the flip side of that is it can be absolutely wicked in many ways. And so I really believe parents have to become more mindful of the online interactions that some of the children are having. And furthermore, I'm seeing a new trend in America, and I applaud these people for doing it. People are really beginning, they're really beginning to stand up and take a stand, and these reports are on the rise, and it's unfortunate because I'm a man of God. I love everybody, and I don't want to see anybody hurt. However, I cannot stand to see anyone victimized. Therefore, I have a burning passion against those who are victimizers, and certainly when it comes down to victimizing our children and things of that nature. So I feel that when a perpetrator like that takes the rights of someone, and they are taking their rights by committing such a wicked and heinous act, they don't have any more rights. And so we're seeing this trend now of people standing up and taking matters into their own hands, to where, if someone is committing a heinous act like this, a wicked and heinous act, well, people are standing up and they're doing something about it now. And there are people that also, these people that are breaking into the homes of people, some of these people are standing up, and it's unfortunate, but they are shooting these intruders. And so this is a trend that really needs to continue and to grow, because if the people, the good and decent, everyday, productive citizens, stand up and say, no more of this, we're not having any more of this, and if we would all band together, then we could really make a huge difference in the social engineering that is taking place to absolutely pollute and poison the minds of these perpetrators, which they've already got a problem to start with. But then, the devil's always in the details, and the human minions that are working for the devil are in the details as well, to aid and abet and enhance and amplify and magnify these perpetrators to commit these acts.
Absolutely. And, you could take the changes in reality around us, even what I called the terraforming of the planet earlier, and that in itself, in a way, actually connects to that character we just listened to there. Because our reality, our world, Bill, right now, it's been changed. And it's not been changed for the betterment of man. It's been changed to be more hospitable to these more dark, demonic entities that are now pervading everywhere, into every corner of society. And you mentioned social engineering. Yeah, you mentioned the social engineering, Bill, just to finish up. I mean, we've seen for years now the destruction of the family. We've got 50-odd different genders. I've lost count of many different kind of sexual preferences there is now. But all of this adds together to almost making this into, dare I say it, the devil's playground.
Yeah, once again, we're on the same wavelength, because you're taking the thoughts out of my head that, I've been doing when I'm not traveling, of course, home, and then I'll do over the phone or Skype sessions with people. And when I'm not doing that, I'm reading. And sometimes I read 2 books a week. I read 1 book a week, sometimes 2 books a week. And I've been doing a lot of reading about psychological warfare and how this all started. And we've talked about this on your show before, about my ideas of when this all started. And then I found this book written by a man named David McGowan, and I think it's called The Adventures in Laurel Canyon. And this man died not long after writing the book. Imagine that. This book, I'm going to have to send you information on this book, Kev. This is something that people should really read, because it confirms everything that I have said all along about how they launched this plan to destabilize society. And it began, with the music movement and certain people. And the interesting thing is that a lot of these so-called iconic rock stars, and where this all began, starting in the 50s and then really gaining steam in the 60s, most of these people have fathers or family members that were in military intelligence. And furthermore, there was a secret military installation located right in Laurel Canyon, which is the Hollywood foothills, where this big movement started with a lot of these, these so-called iconic rock stars. And so you see the connection. And this man did an excellent job in writing the book and connecting the dots. And people like Jim Morrison, who's hailed as such an icon, and he was so great. Well, his dad was in military intelligence. He was a commander. And Morrison called him the Lizard King. And so somebody like David Crosby, his name's David Van Crosby something or other. He's from royalty. He's from an elite family. These people don't get it. They think that, and again, look, the artist and their machine, which is the beast machine, promotes them to be, hey, we're in this together. I'm you, you are me. It's a lie. These people are not the common everyday people. They have led privileged lives, and they come from royal bloodlines. And so it takes a lot of study. I would suggest to people to take some time to connect the dots, and you'll see what I'm talking about with a lot of those performers back then, which is translated into the turnover of the performers of today. They're all connected in some way, shape, or form, and they are all serving one master for one purpose, and that is social engineering and mind control.
This is why I genuinely love teaming up with you, Bill, because it was maybe a month ago or so, I was introducing my mum out there to the joys of Laurel Canyon. You couldn't make this stuff up.
Isn't that amazing?
It really is. And there's a guest that I get onto the show here, Mark Devlin, his name is. He's just wrote his second book, and they're both called Musical Truth, books 1 and 2. And we basically ended up calling it the PSYOP 60s. You've got your Jim Morrison, all that gang from Laurel Canyon, but also on this side of the pond as well, we had the Beatles. Now, the Beatles, they turned up in America, and in reality back then, obviously no internet, hardly anyone had ever heard of these people, yet when they turned up at the airport, there was hundreds, maybe thousands of young girls turning up, screaming at the top of their lungs, and these pictures went out around America, and overnight, the Beatles were a worldwide sensation. But again, all just a tool of social engineering. And it's not changed today, Bill, because you can look at the 60s, and what Mark's done in his second book is, I'm sure you're aware of something. It was called the acid house scene. It was dance. It was that smiley face. And that in itself has been another kind of episode in social engineering via the music. And of course, all of this, when you start looking at the pyramid of power in the music industry and Hollywood, at the very top of that, we have these same dark practitioners. And, you know, it should be no surprise then that we see all of these artists today, the Lady Gagas, etc., filmed recently walking about as if she was in an MK Ultra state, Bill. I mean, all of these people are being used as tools to pollute the minds of this new generation.
And furthermore, they've literally signed their life and their soul away for this fame and fortune and power and glory. And boy, oh boy, it sounds like I'm going to have to get his books now, because, you know, I was so impressed with the writings of David McGowan and, you know, the way he laid it all out. And I was in total agreement, you know, and a lot of those people also, like John Phillips of the Mamas and the Papas, these were sick individuals that did sick things, and they were just signed up to do that. And Phillips also served in the military, and a lot of these people served right here in Annapolis, Maryland, or in the Langley, Virginia, CIA type of connections. I mean, we could make a whole show out of, you know, this topic, and it goes so deep. And, you know, it was comical to me that some of these people who were supposed to be so anti-establishment and all that, that came from these, you know, these military families that, you know, and furthermore, when you touched on the Beatles, why do you think they called it the British invasion? Because it was the invasion of the American family to destabilize the American family. And the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, did they come from Tavistock Agency?
You know, you mentioned
Tavistock created these bands.
You mentioned the nuclear family there. Now, we had a judge over here in the UK the other day. It was a judge, and he was actually celebrating the fact that the nuclear family has all but been killed off. And that in itself, here's a judge with the black robes, the Saturnalian Brotherhood, the darkness, basically celebrating the fact that there is no family unit now, Bill. And of course, what that means is everyone from cradle to grave is basically dependent on the state.
Correct. And that's exactly what they want. And so this was a very calculated and clever plan to, you know, launch this, and not only launch it, but implement it and then carry it out and then have it to be so effective. And what made it so effective was it captured the minds of the youth when this, you know, big new thing came along with the music, and then they further enhanced it when they introduce drugs into the culture and into the youth in that way, once that happened, forget it, because then the drugs took over and the minds, which bled over into the spirit, were totally in disarray from the LSD and all the other drugs that were introduced into the populace.
Absolutely. And, to listen to us, for people out there, if you're not used to hearing me and Bill, it might seem like doom and gloom and there's no hope out there, but you take a lot of this to prayer, Bill. And one thing I love about you is before we leave every show, you always manage to leave the audience with an upbeat, kind of optimistic message for them to take with them. And we've got a couple of minutes left, sir. I'm going to hand it to you. We've got 3 minutes, but just for you to take us out tonight, be it a little prayer, be it words of encouragement, whatever you think is apt, Bill.
And I want to thank you again, brother, for having me. Love you dearly and your family as well. I can't wait to come back again. Thank everybody out there for listening. And love and God bless all of you out there. And what I'm about to say here, please take this to heart. We are in a time now like no other, and it is super important for you to have your personal connection with God. And I'm not saying this to try and sell a book or anything. I don't have any motive behind this other than to try and help you to get through this time that we're in and the times that are coming. So I pray for all of you. If you need me in any way, if you want to get a copy of the connection, or if you're in need of spiritual assistance, don't hesitate to contact me, billbean.net. And now I'm going to pray, and God bless all of you. And Father, I thank you and praise you for this blessed and appointed time. Thank you and praise you for helping Kev and I to discuss the truth. And sometimes the truth is stranger than fiction. Sometimes the truth is harsh. And Father, I ask that you just bless Kev and his family, and I ask that you bless all of the listeners out there and their families as well. And by your mighty power, Father, your mighty and holy name, in Jesus' name, I bind and break the power over Satan and all of his demons and all of his curses, hexes, vexes, and spells. And I ask you for abundant blessings to come over Kev and his family and all that are listening and involved in this. And Father, we know that you are going to bring a great and terrible day, and we pray that you will bring a purging on this earth, and we pray that you'll bless us and help us to move forward in peace, freedom, and victory. Father, we give you the praise and the thanks and the glory forevermore, in Jesus' name.
Absolutely fantastic. And Bill, you do a lot of public speaking as well, sir. Any upcoming dates that people can put on the calendar to come and see you?
Yes, I'm very much looking forward to appearing at my dear friend Mara Geist event in New York on the 14th of July. And I'm going to be there speaking, and I'll have copies of my new book, The Connection. And I'm also going to be doing private sessions with people there. And the last time I appeared there, it sold out. It was a wonderful night, and we look forward to another sellout again. And it'll be another great night as well.
And Bill will be back.
That is Saturday night, July 14th.
Excellent. 2 days before my birthday. And Bill will be back with us next month, as always. So until next time, folks, wherever you are, make it TFR, and God bless everyone.